Hello everybody, John here, and today onto the garage. We're carrying on with some more of the badge saga and trying out something that I'm quite interested to try today because I've never done it, and that's making a silicone mould. So let's have a little look how we're going to do that. We're going to try making a mould for our XK8 badge using this stuff, SILIGUM. Basically two putty-like substances that you mix together, and the end result is a silicone rubber moulding compound. So this is to make the mould, not the part. So we're going to try that out. Recent attempts have had mixed results. I've been using a plaster mould and I poured resin into it and I got this weird effect. Looked like it was going to go well, but it actually soaked into the resin and into the plaster and ate the plaster. And that's because resin's quite aggressive and gets hot. We've done some aluminium casting into a plaster mould, and obviously this is a disaster, but it does show promise. We've got a good result over here, a bit of a blowhole there, and an incomplete fill, and possibly chilled a bit fast here, which says if I play with the technique it might work. Also, I did not get rid of enough dross and scum out of the aluminium, and there was some sort of chilling effect from the mould as well, I think. So that's got potential, and carry on working on that. The plaster mould was also used to generate this, made from Fimo, which is a brand name. It's a polyester clay, and you just use it like plasticine, push it into the mould, and then the resultant impression you bake in your domestic oven for a little while. I've got a video on that separately, but today is about this stuff. So let's give it a crack. So 2 containers of what we can best describe as putty. Let's have a look at the consistency. It's much softer than a plasticine. Marshmallowy, one might say. I'm going to guesstimate half of what I need. A little bit more. All right, if I say that's half of what I need, just make him into a ball. Very soft, fluffy consistency. Wearing gloves, but it's not sticky as such. So now go into this one. This similar, slightly firmer maybe, the blue component. Okay, there we are. And I'm just going to do a little experiment. Once you mix these together, they start to harden. But if I only had half of it, yeah, that's going to be more than enough to make myself a mould. Okay, so there's our workpiece. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to mix together the 2 component parts. So we'll just seal this up. Don't think it'll go off easily in air without mixing, but good practice. Get the lids back on them. And as soon as I start mixing these, I've got 5 minutes. My intention is to flatten it on the worktop onto them, but there is a risk, of course, that when I do that, it sticks to the worktop. I'm going to risk it on the grounds that it obviously should demold from the badge as well. And then I'm going to take the resultant item and flip it over and place it in here, just so that I can sit it down flat in case I'm going to be doing any pouring with it. So here we go. Committed, they're touching. So let's mix this thing together. And that's the technique I'm going to use. Keep parting, overlaying, should give me a really quick route to a completely mixed substance. Basically the same as making a Japanese folded steel sword, except much easier and not metal and requiring a lot less talent and time. So exactly the same. So we're trying to get a completely even coloration, which will tell us there are no bits of unmixed material in there. So a couple of streaks. Going to keep working quite quickly. Okay, that's looking good. Now I want to get it back into a ball and try to ensure I'm not trapping air in there in an air bubble, which is going to ruin my impression. Okay, one compact ball of completely molded silicone. All right, here we go. Middle of the badge. I'm going to make sure I get a good through mold on the keyhole. I'm also going to make sure I go all the way through the 8. But I'm pretty safe now, so turning over. Keep kneading it out. Now, is it possible at this point to turn it over? It is. Now, being silicone, if it over masks my badge, theoretically it's not the end of the world, because it's going to still come back out because of the amount of flexibility you get with silicone. Now, I was going to pop it in there, but it's quite sticky. Not so sticky I couldn't get it off the table, but sticky enough, or if I do, I will distort the image. So instead, I'm going to let it set on the tabletop. So we'll come back in a few minutes. My first attempts at casting a badge with this, I'm going to use the resin, but actually et the plaster. So it's going to be a good test of how tough and resistant to attack the silicone is. Okay, so we've been 5 minutes. Let's try and pull this off the tabletop. Ooh, came unstuck quite quick. Got that typical silicone feel of mega grippy. So let's tease this out. Just going to work my way all the way around the edges. Pop the middle bits. Not too shabby. Those defects, I think, are little bits of air, which at least means they're going to be positive on the final product. Corners of the X are not entirely satisfactory. That looks okay though. That's probably because, again, I just didn't move the silicone down to those corners quick enough. They're going to be okay, but they might be a little distorted in there. Certainly good enough for me to risk pouring some resin into it and seeing what happens. So we'll do that next. Does it need that? Probably. Good idea, so I don't spill it on my workbench. Okay, so we've got a bit of a plastic lid. We're going to pour some isopon Fastglas. The reason I'm using this stuff, readily available from most motor factors for doing fibre reinforced repairs. Take a guess at how much I need. Certainly no more than that. Add in a little bit of hardener. Usually not liquid these days. I don't know the whys. It used to be you got hardener like this with filler and a liquid hardener with resins, but we're probably essentially exactly the same thing anyway, so somebody's decided why have two substances. Then with resin like this, it changes from being liquid and you're thinking, oh well, nothing's happening, it's not hardening, just solid in the space of about 60 seconds. So once you've got it reasonably even, don't mess around, and here we go. Got a pot I'm keeping unused substances in so I can dispose of it properly. At the moment it's got some molten glue sticks in there. I actually tried to cook on my cooker. That didn't get so well because I couldn't get it back out of the pot. It sets too quickly. We'll wait to see if this eats silicone as well as it can eat the plaster. So there we are. Now solid. So let's see if it demolds or if it ate the silicone. Feels cold, glassy smooth. So let's give this a go. Well, peeled away easy, very easy in fact. Looking quite promising. It's not really stuck, it's just little re-entrant features like this that are holding it, and I'm being super delicate. Whoa. Well, that's not been eaten, so that's good news. Here's the moment of truth. Ooh. Super interesting. Well, first impressions are very promising for the technique. So the finish is actually very good. These little marks are air bubbles that were already in my silicone mold. So that is about me applying the putty to the top surface of the badge, I think evenly. You know, you've got to be touching it all before you start to emboss it. So that's interesting. It's caught all of the detail, including the re-entrant stuff. I know that the keyhole is not, it's not got any relief on it, it's not got any taper in it, so it's reproduced that beautifully. There's a bit of flash around the edges which I've over poured, which was intentional. On the negative side, I don't know if you can see, there's a slight curve in it. Now that's going to be down to me again, which means when I push this badge, which is completely flat, when I push this badge into the silicone mold, I've obviously bent it, so I could do something about that by maybe attaching it to something nice and stiff to emboss it. I'm thinking that this has got legs. I'm going to tidy this up and come back to you. Hello everybody, wish me luck. And this is our resin moulding in a silicone mould comes out. It's pretty good actually. This definitely could be dressed up. A little bit of sanding, a bit of dremeling, and we would end up with a badge that could definitely be painted and put on your car. In some ways this Jaguar one's even more successful. Some dirt surface defects, but they're mostly upwards, so they will come out. So after some more fettling, this has been primed several times and wet and dried on the front surface. That's looking pretty decent as a front image now. Way too thick obviously, but I'm not going to put this straight on the car. This is just for continued experiments. And the Jaguar badge, again fettled for a front image. The back's pretty shabby, but flattened off with wet and dry on the front. So we're just going to apply a little bit of primer to this one. This one we're going to try out, this one we're going to try out a bit of paint finish on it and wrap this up.